it's Brewbird. This video is all about gin louching. What it is, how to prevent it, and if you want to prevent it in the first place. So let's get to it. What is gin louching, you say? Well, let's take a look at how gin is made. In this method, we fill the still with flavorless neutral grain spirit at 40% alcohol. Then we add in our bags filled with botanicals. Then we turn the heat on and the essential oils from the botanicals will travel up with the alcoholic vapors, and when it reaches the condenser, the oils, which are in vapor form, will change back into liquid form. What we have here is a gin concentrate. It has a very high alcohol content, around 78 to 80% in this case, and it's packed with essential oils from the botanicals. Gins are usually around 40% ABV when you buy them in the store. So we'll dilute this gin concentrate with deionized water down to around 40% ABV. Now initially, when you start adding in the water, the gin will start to turn cloudy. And this is normal because there are spots with more alcohol in them and spots with more water in them. So if you just mix it really well and let it sit for a while, this cloudiness should disappear. Here I have a sample of the gin concentrate, and look what happens when I add water to it. Immediately the gin turns from clear to cloudy. Even when I swish the glass around a few times and let it sit, the cloudiness does not disappear. This is gin louching. It occurs when you start diluting your gin down with water. The more you dilute it, the greater the chance that the essential oils from the botanicals will come out of suspension and cause the gin to louche. Also, the type of botanicals you use will impact the likelihood of gin louching. If you use botanicals that have higher oil content, then when you start diluting your concentrate, there's a greater likelihood that the gin will louche. Now that we know what gin louching is, what are some things we can do to prevent it from happening? When you're doing the initial distillation, you can take a bigger heads cut. That means as soon as the spirit starts collecting, you'll collect the first portion of liquid that comes off the still and then discard it. In my case, since I collect 18 liters of gin concentrate overall, I make a small heads cut at 100 milliliters. You might need to take more than this amount depending on your recipe, so you'll need to do some experimentation to figure out just where to make your heads cut for each gin recipe. This portion here is actually my heads, so that's why it turns cloudy so quickly when I add water to it. You might be wondering why there are so many oils at the start of the distillation. You'd think that oils, being heavier, would be present in greater concentrations at the end of the distillation and not at the start. I was wondering the same thing myself, and I asked Odin, the founder of iStill, why this was the case. He said that because the still takes time to heat up, the first fraction will be distilled many times as the vapor hits a cold section of the still, turns back into a liquid, and gives off its energy to heat up the still. This process leads to an overconcentration of early juniper oils that needs to be discarded. Another thing you might do is an earlier tails cut, so you're not collecting so many of the heavy oils near the end of the distillation. However, this will also leave you with less gin concentrate overall. If you've already finished the distillation and are now adding in your deionized water, you can prevent louching by diluting it with less water. So instead of diluting it to 40% ABV like we intended, we can dilute it with less water to say 45% ABV to prevent the louching from happening in the first place. If you've made a mistake and the gin has already louched, goodness knows I've done it plenty of times, you can usually save it by adding neutral grain spirit to raise the overall alcohol percentage of the gin and give it more solvency power. Let's remind ourselves what a solvent is. Here's a definition: a substance in which another substance is dissolved, forming a solution. a substance, usually a liquid, capable of dissolving another substance. Adding more spirit will help the oils go back into the solution, and the gin will turn clear again. If you're a home distiller, adding neutral grain spirit to raise the overall ABV of the gin is a fine solution. However, if you're working as a distiller and your customer has asked for 200 liters of gin at 40% ABV and the gin is already louching at that concentration, then you can't just keep adding neutral grain spirit, as that will bring your product out of the customer's specifications. So what to do, what to do, what to do? You could chill filter your gin so the gin is cooled to around 0 degrees Celsius and then pass through an adsorption filter to remove the haze. You're getting rid of the oils that cause the haze, but those oils are also what give your gin flavor and a richer texture. So when you chill filter your gin, you're also making your gin less flavorsome, which isn't ideal and also takes more time and money to do. What's wrong with a gin that's louched? Well, nothing really. A louched gin is a sign that your gin has tremendous amounts of flavor in it. So congratulations if you have a gin that's louched. Often a cloudy gin will taste much better than a clear one because it has more of those botanical oils in it. If you go out and buy a gin today, you'll be hard-pressed to find a cloudy one, since they're considered not as aesthetically pleasing to look at as a clear gin. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video on gin louching. Please support the channel by giving this video a thumbs up and hit the subscribe button for more distilling and distillery videos. This is Brewbird, sending good vibes your way. I'll see you next time! Well, I hope you enjoyed this video on gin louching. Wow,